Hi guys, welcome to my channel. So let's talk about how light works. So this is the principle that I apply to every drawing that I do, and this is how I took my drawings from not very realistic to very realistic in a very short space of time. It's purely from understanding this concept. So to try and explain it a bit better, let's start with the sphere. So as you can see, light source is coming in this direction. It's so important to establish your light source straight away. Um, if you don't, you'll have light hitting random parts, and then you'll have shadows in random parts, and it just doesn't make sense. And as a human being, you'll look at it and instantly, without even realizing it, your mind will think something's wrong with it. It just doesn't look right. So it's really important to start off with to make sure that your light source is um, where you think it is, and the shadows are going to be where they should be. So let's start with this sphere. I'm just going to knock that back a bit because that's a bit dark. Okay. So light source is here, which means this part of the sphere is going to be the highlighted part. So we'll start over here and we'll start laying down some graphite. So this is going to be the back of the sphere. So this is going to be the darkest part. This is just going to be a very quick demonstration. I'm not planning on taking a longer time with this, but just to give you an idea, this is going to be the darkest part down here. And most people will be like, well, hold on, surely the darkest part's going to be under here. And no, it's not, because of reflective light. So you've got your main light source here, which is shining down this way onto the sphere, but then you've also got a reflective light, which is shining off this table here up this way. So that shines across that way, so that'll light up this part of the sphere, not as much as the main highlight, but it'll still be lighter than the darkest place, which is going to be here, like this bit here, where it's literally got no light whatsoever. So shade that around. You need to make sure you're following where that light is. This is just a base layer. Especially with realism, you need to build up in layers. So I like to use paintbrush just to smooth it out a bit. And you can also, with the paintbrush, move a bit of graphite around. So I've got those darkest bits, but then I'm moving graphite around with the paintbrush as well. Just to start blending it out a bit. And we're going with a darker pencil. Again, into the darkest spot first. That's what I always do with my drawings as well. Start at the darkest places and work my way out in layers. You don't want to go for as dark as you can get it straight away. It will destroy any realism. You need to have layers. You need the mid-tones through there. And you need, especially for putting darker pencils down, you need a base layer down first, or else it's just going to be really grainy. And that kills realism. There we go. I also like to use a bit of tissue paper. It's also really good, especially if you're doing skin. It's really, really good for getting nice smooth skin. Okay, move some of that graphite around a bit. And as you can see as well, when you use the tissue, it brightens the area as well. So if you've got something that needs to go brighter, but you don't necessarily want to go in with your eraser, tissue is also good for getting rid of some of those darker areas. Maybe if they only need to go a tiny bit brighter, tissue is really good for that. So this is all I do, just keep going around, keep building the layers, and keeping in mind how light works. So staying away from that main highlight, because although we need some graphite in there, because if you don't have any graphite and you've just got a white piece of paper, it just looks flat. And for realism, the last thing that we want is for anything to look flat. Okay, so I'm going to go back in with my HB, which is what I started with, and I'm just going to start blending this a bit better, getting that gradation. You have to have a gradation. You can't have random pencil strokes just in a line, because your mind will see it and will instantly be thinking that's not right. Something's definitely not right there. And as an artist, sometimes whilst you're drawing your piece, you'll look at it yourself and you'll think something's not right there, and it'll take you a while to see it. And as you do more and more drawing, that's something that you get better and better at, is seeing where those faults are. Okay, again, a bit of tissue, just smooth it all out. So far I've used my HB and my 4B pencil, but it really doesn't matter what grade of pencils you use for this. You can use any grade of pencils for this. In fact, you can probably do this with just one pencil if you're very careful. So I don't like that around the top there, so I'm just going to take that off. That's where our highlight's going to be. So there we go. Right. So now I am going to take a 6B pencil, and go in again, and just get these darks as dark as they need to be. I'm just using a circular motion, not backwards and forwards, or else you'll leave start and stop lines. Again, will kill any realism if you leave start and stop lines. So you really need to make sure when you're laying your pencil down, you're in circular motions, unless you need to get up and close and personal. You'll see my grip changed on my pencil. For more control, grip closer to the end of the pencil. For me to get real control, I get real close. But then when shading, I move back and I shade with the side of my pencil. You can get a much flatter, much nicer appearance without the start and stop lines, and without the, like, if you go in like that, it's you leave pencil lines. You're just going in with the side of your pencil, you don't leave those score lines. You still get the value down. Okay, there we go. So now I'm just going to smooth that bit out a little bit. Put too much pressure on there. And now I'm going to take my kneaded eraser and take out this highlight. So there's lots of different ways that you can use a kneaded eraser. I like to, if you just need to take a little bit off, you can tap it like that. As you can see, it's starting to lighten. That's why I said try and stay away from the highlight as much as possible. If you need to get more graphite off, you can really press down hard. And if that's still not enough, I mean that is enough. We don't need to take more off than that. But if it's not, then you can swipe across the page as well. So where this overspill is here, look, if you just swipe across, you can see that coming off. Kneaded erasers are very good. It's something that you definitely need. Okay, so I'm just going to go back in with my HB pencil and just fill in this area. Try and blend this out a bit better. Again down here. Cross-hatching as well is a good method. You go one way, you get all the value that you can go in that way without too much pressure. And you can either turn your page or turn your wrist to go in a different way. And again, you'll start getting more graphite because the tooth of the paper picks it up at different angles. Just block that bit in. Okay, so that needs to go darker there. This is understanding how light works. You can look at it and you say to yourself, right, that bit needs to be darker because that's under there, so it wouldn't be that bright. Coming up through this bit. Okay. Like I said, you need graphite over all. You can't have any white, even though it's the highlight. It cannot be white. If you leave it white, you kill all dimension. So again, very gently, just smooth it out. And as you can see, it's starting to look a bit more 3D. So again, kneaded eraser. Like I said, this is as much of a tool as a pencil. It really is. It's so good just to go in, just take some of that graphite back off, and then as you come out, gradation, a little bit less pressure. If you need to get it off, tap it a little bit harder. There we go. And then the same across the bottom. Excuse me. Although it's really bright. See, I've changed the end of my eraser. I like to use a teardrop shape, and then I've got the fat end that I can tap and take big pieces, and then I've got the thin end which I can again tap like this, but is also really good if you're doing hair or something and you need to take a piece of just one strand of hair out. You can make it into like a chisel point, and then that's really good for dragging through, taking hairs out. Anyway, I digress. So this needs to go a little bit brighter. Okay, I'm just going to go back in with my HB and just tidy up these bits. Just need a little bit more. We're getting there. Layers. As I said, for realism, it's so important to get layers. You've just got to keep working it, keep going over it and over it and over it, making sure all those layers coincide with each other. You haven't got anything that your eye looks at and says, doesn't really make much sense. Again with the tissue, just a little smooth. We need shadow. So shadow is going to be that casting on the table. And just quickly smooth that out. And that obviously needs to be a lot darker because it's the shadow. So it's going to be darker than the actual sphere. Get that darker. Again, I'm not trying to get it as dark as I can do with this layer. And I'll smooth that out. Now we'll go darker again. New layer. This is going to be the darkest part of the shadow, right underneath the sphere. And that is what I call an edge to value. So what we've done so far, this is gradation. So where it gradually goes from one value to another. This is an edge to value. So this shows that there is something behind the sphere, or in this case underneath it, which is the shadow. Another really important part for realism is edged values. The two main things, I would say, two main concepts are gradation, which you do with edge to values as well. This is an edge to value, but there's still gradation. It's still gradually getting lighter as it comes out away from the shadow. The darkest part of the shadow is right where the sphere touches the table or whatever it's on. So that's going to be casting the darkest part, but then it does fade away. It's not, the shadow isn't strong the whole way, it's just there. So again, another layer. After every layer, I like to go in and just smooth it out. Smooth out all those pencil lines. There we go. So anyway, I think you get the idea. Rub away all that mess. You get the idea, I think, that if you understand how light works, you can literally apply this concept to anything, and yeah, come up with something that looks right to the eye, that's not confusing, that's not like, how's that there? Why is that there? That doesn't make sense. You can get rid of all that. And like I said in my other video, in one of my other videos, you can definitely improve on what the reference picture is. You can definitely improve on it and make your drawing look even better than the reference picture just by applying some of these simple concepts. So there we go. I mean, that's pretty much done. You get the idea. The secondary light down there. So following the laws of light and how light works, you can see the light source is coming this direction. So how could there possibly be a shadow here? If the light source is coming this way, the shadow is going to be behind whatever object the light is shining onto. So there can't be a shadow down here. It has to be behind there. Likewise, the darkest part of the sphere can't be here, where the light's pointing onto it. Light makes such a massive impact on realism, and it really is so important that you get a fundamental understanding of how it works, because it creates all of the features on a human face, eyes, ears, nose, mouth, whatever. They're all, you create all of those from the shadows and the highlights and edge to values and gradation. And if you understand all the principles of, there's no, if you look at that, there's not, you can't see a pencil line on that. It's all gradually fading away, or an edge to value that fades, or there's not just, if I was just to put a pencil line there, I mean, that just makes absolutely no sense now. It's like, well, the darkest part is just a pencil stroke. It makes no sense. So you really do need to understand where the darkest parts are, get your darks as dark as you need them, and then fade it away. And like I said, layers, you need to use lots and lots and lots of layers. And then you get that gradation. So we've got the lights, the midtones, the darks, all just from layering pencils without trying to go too dark too soon. Laying all the pencils down in the right order. And you can have fun. You can create some really cool optical illusions just by understanding how light works. So there we go. Anyway, that's the sphere. So I also want to do a barrel, because I think this will help just as much as that one did. So for the barrel, let's say our light source is, let's do the same again. Let's just say our light source is coming down that way. So if this is a cylindrical barrel, it goes around, naturally the darkest part, if the light's pointing this way, is going to be this side of the barrel. I hope you all agree with me on that one, that's going to be the darkest. And then as the barrel comes up, it'll get lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter until the light source is directly pointing to it. And then as it goes back down out of sight, it'll get darker and darker and darker and darker again. So let's do that. Let's just fill in. And you'll see on this one that I've also put some bars across. And that is to explain the other part of the concept, which is wherever there's less light, everything gets darker, which is an important concept that many, many people don't get. So I'm just going to shade in between the bars for now. I'll show you what I mean shortly. Again, this is a bit crude. You'll get the idea. So that's the darkest part. We all agree on that, hopefully. So again, as I keep saying, one layer down, quickly smooth over it. So now I will go to my next pencil. This one is my 4B, but as I said before, it really doesn't matter which pencil you use, as long as you've got a few different grades. You could easily do this with a HB, a 2B, and a 4B easily, or even a HB and a 2B. You could still do it. So again, just shading where there's going to be less light. And shade all over this, but with the gradation, I'm not just making it all flat. The last thing I ever want to do is make my drawings flat. So I always, as soon as I start, whatever it is, try and get some dimension going. And as you can see, I'm not taking any care over this. I'm literally just scribbling it down. But the effect at the end, excuse me, the effect at the end will be surprising. I think it's just so amazing that you can take just a flat white piece of paper and with a few pencils and a little bit of knowledge, technique, you can make something just come alive. And especially at the moment with all that's going on outside and lockdown and all that, it's a brilliant time to just pick up your pencils and start having a go. There's so much information on YouTube that anybody can learn anything these days. And I firmly agree that drawing is a skill that anybody can learn. Just understanding principles. Again, just go and smooth it out. This time, I'm taking a bit of graphite over, ready for my next layer. And so I always start from the darkest spot, work my way over. So now I can take my HB and get a layer over that, because the base layer is already down from my tissue. I dragged over graphite. So again, we're looking for a gradation. Don't want just flat bars. Okay. Again with the tissue. A bit more pressure where it needs blending a bit more. Okay. So I'm now extend this a bit more. I don't like putting any of my dark pencils down without a base layer down first. So it gets very grainy. Absolutely destroys realism. But this is absolutely something anybody can learn. 100% on that. Like I say, especially now when we're all on lockdown and we can't go anywhere. You don't even need special paper for this. You can just do this on like random printer paper or whatever. It's just learning the concepts. So I'm now extending that a bit more, as you can see. Now, go back in with my HB pencil and just try and get these integrating a bit better. I've just added a bit more with the tissue paper. And at the moment, although I know I'm getting lighter coming over here, I'm not too worried about going into where my lightest spot is, because I'm only pressing very lightly. I reckon that's probably not too bad. Okay. Just extend this one a bit. And now this is going to be an edge to value, because it's going down around an outer sight. So that's going to be the darkest place. If you need to get darker, you can, like I said, change grip on your pencil. Grip it a little bit closer to the tip. You get a little bit more control over where you put in the pencil, but also it changes the angle. Makes it darker without really changing your pressure too much. It does change your pressure, but you don't change it. It's just from changing the angle of the pencil. So there we go. Now we need to fade that away. Fade it away. And same again, all the way up. Making sure these parts are the darkest parts, and then we're going to have a look at the bars next. That'll really help pull it all together. I think it'll give you a really good understanding of not only gradation and going from dark to light, but also for understanding that wherever it gets darker, everything gets darker. So if you were to make these darker, like I'm doing now, but do nothing with the bars in between, it's going to look very, very, very strange. And it certainly is not going to look 3D. It certainly is not going to look like a barrel. So again, just getting darker, like I keep saying, where there's less light. It's such a basic principle, but it's so powerful and it's so effective. And even if you've got limited skills drawing, because drawing is a skill, anyone can learn it. The more you draw, the better you'll get. But even if you've got limited skills at the moment with drawing, you can still apply this concept, and it will be the first big jump in your so-called drawing talent. I'm not sure I believe in drawing talent, if I'm honest. I'm convinced anybody can learn to draw. Like I said, it's following the correct concepts, learning a few techniques, and then it's literally just recognizing shapes from your reference image, but also employing this concept. So if you have a reference image that's disagreeing with this concept, I follow the concept. And I've had many people tell me that my drawings are better than the reference image, purely because I follow the concept, and there might have been a flash, or there might be different light in situation where the actual photo didn't come out that well because of the lighting situation. But then you take your drawing and you apply these concepts, and it looks better than the reference image. The reference image can be a bit, not really make much sense, and your drawing, it's like pop off the page and makes perfect sense. And that is a wonderful skill to have. And I promise you, when you hand over a drawing to a loved one, excuse me, or a friend, or even a commission, when you see that person's face, it definitely makes, I mean, drawing's worthwhile anyway. The satisfaction I get myself from drawing is enough to make me keep drawing. But then to see people's faces when you hand over their drawing is just like, wow. So let's just quickly sort this side out. So this side is also getting darker where there's less light, or at the back. But this is a much smaller gradation. So there will still be a gradation. It will still be darker where there's less light. But we haven't got that far to get the gradation. It's only a very small one, which is actually one of the more challenging aspects. But again, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. You can see I've changed the grip on my pencil, and it makes the pencil go down darker. So we'll just get these darkened up, and then we'll look at these bars. Hopefully everything will make sense. If you've got any questions or comments, please do leave them below. I'd love to hear people's feedback, what they think, and if there's anything else that I'd like to see. Okay, so because this one's quite tight, I can't really get my tissue in there. Use a blending stump instead. The idea is the same. Gradation, blend it, fade it away. Okay. You can also, as well, with a blending stump, once you've used it a bit, the end will become dirty, and you can use it for adding a bit more value as well if you need to in places. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to take my eraser. I'm going to swipe straight down this because I want this to be the brightest part. There we go. Okay, so you can also take a paintbrush, just smooth over it. You can see the graphite is being moved around by the paintbrush. That is not as bright as it was. Okay, so this is why I love a kneaded eraser, because quite often I tend to draw backwards. I tend to get the value down, and then I'll use my kneaded eraser like this where I need to, just to back those values off a bit. Okay, so bars. Let's make them lighter bars. So if these bars, if this is getting darker, this needs to get darker as well. So although these bars are lighter, they need to be darker where there's less light, but they're still not going to be as dark as that. So, and you'll notice there's still a gradation. The darkest down there, and then fade it back up. Same again. The darkest where there's less light. Fade it away. I hope this is making sense. Again, where there's less light, even though it's on the bars, and the bars are lighter, it still gets darker where there's less light. And we fade it away. And again, this side, you know what I'm going to say? Darker where there's less light. It fades away. So I need to make these outsides of the bars darker on this side. So just quickly do that. So as you can see, it is starting to look three-dimensional. And this is absolutely brilliant practice, not only for understanding how light works, but also pencil strokes, blending. I mean, this exercise, and the sphere is a good exercise, but this exercise as well really does incorporate all of the concepts I've been talking about, and will improve your drawing no end. I promise you that. And then last one. Like I said, this is a bit crude, but you could literally spend hours and hours and hours just doing this. Just going through pencil to pencil to pencil, getting all the values down. Just blend straight over that. Getting all your values down and getting them all correct, them all in the right order. Could spend hours doing it. Okay, let's get a bit more value in there, and then we can tap it back. Just a little bit. Okay. Like I said, you can add quite a bit of value with your blending stump once it's dirtier, but that's not enough. So to blend these out a bit. Like I said, it's quite difficult to blend to fade away when there's such a small patch. Another reason why this is such a good exercise, really. So blend that way towards the highlight. And now all we need to do is sort out the bars. So they get lighter, and then they'll get darker as they go back. And that way. And then if you need to make those darker at any point, you can just grab your bit of tissue and just really gently go over the bits you want darker. And there we go, I mean, like I say, it's a bit crude. We could go a lot longer with that, but let me just make these a bit darker. Just on the end. And the more contrast you get in your piece, the more darks and lights, the more real it does become. There we go, anyway, you get the idea. So that's just following the laws of light. So you see there, I put no contradictions. What I mean by that is that when one thing gets darker, everything else gets darker with it. So as these go around, not only do the outer barrels get darker, but the bands do as well. And then as they come up, not only does the outer get lighter, so does the band. And then as it goes back down, it gets darker again. Like I say, I mean, you could, it's very crude, you could spend hours doing it, but I hope that gives you a better understanding of how light works. If we just have a quick look at this, I just want to show you the power of edge to values. So because of that edge there and this value that comes away from it, it's not just a pencil line, it's got value making its way out with the gradation. You can clearly see that his colour is going up behind his face. You can see that that's behind that. Again, edge to value, you can see that's his neck and his coat, his collar is going back beyond that way. Again, edge to value, you can see his nose, the nostril goes up into his nose that way. So there's so many advantages from employing these sets of how light works, employing the core concepts of find your light source, find which way it's going to be pointing, and then plan your drawing accordingly, where the darkest bits are going to be, where the highlights are going to be, where the shadows are going to be. And I promise you, you will produce far better drawings. It's a fact, if you employ the concept, if you conceptually understand how light works, everything gets darker where there's less light, everything gets lighter where there's more light, edge to values and gradation, then as far as drawing goes, the world is your oyster. Honestly, you can draw anything. So I would definitely practice this. I'd practice the sphere as well, but if you're going to practice one, then I'd definitely practice the barrel. I think it's got every single concept in that, and it will be really good for you. So yeah, that's it from me on that one. So that's how light works. So I hope that was helpful, and if you've got this far, then thank you very much, and please do subscribe. I've got lots more tutorials coming out shortly. Anyway, that's it from me. Thanks, guys.